Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Real Talks. I'm your host, David Steele. I'm sorry for the late start time tonight, but I promised you guys this, and I definitely was going to deliver. So I actually sat down. So anybody who's not familiar with this is Mission Impossible Fridays, and for the next coming weeks, okay, I'm going to be talking all about the new. Hello, Dad. How are you? I'm going to be talking about all of these Mission Impossible films. If you haven't already, go back and watch. I've rewatched the original one from 1996. I just did Mission Impossible 2, directed by John Woo. Okay, did the Mission Impossible 3, directed by J.J. Abrams. And tonight, my guys, I'm going to be talking about the fourth film in this installment in this franchise, and I'm talking about Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. So I literally just got done watching this about 20 minutes ago. My God, I forgot how good this was. And the stunts and everything else about this were just unbelievable. The editing, and we're going to get into all that in a couple of minutes, but overall, I forgot how good this film was. This is when it, as I said last week, going into at the end of Mission Impossible 3, this is when it was all going to start to kick off. This is when the insane starts to happen, the stunts, and it's just mind blowing. So, as always, I'm going to give you guys a little factoids about the film, and talk about what I liked and what I didn't like and everything else. So let's just dive right into it. So, a couple of little nuggets off the top about the film. So this came out, believe it or not, 12 years ago. I know, 12 years ago. It was unbelievable. So it actually was released. It was a Christmas release, if you could believe that. So it was December 21st, okay? And it had a budget of $145 million, which today is like, really? That's it? Yeah, so it was $145 million. And it ended up grossing just shy of $695 million worldwide. Unbelievable. Okay? That's not even this crazy part. The crazy part is this only opened to $12.7 million. Think about that. Think about that this is a Mission Impossible movie, guys. This isn't, when Harry met Sally, or this is a Mission Impossible. This is the fourth installment in this unbelievable franchise. So yeah, that blew my mind. It ended up crossing just over $209 million, and the rest was made overseas. So $495 million was made overseas. And that's where, by the way, guys, that's where these films are going to make their money, hands down, and twice on Sunday. And I think that the same is true about, Dead Reckoning Part 1. Anyways, so yeah. So this was directed by Brad Bird, okay? And now he has done such films as The Incredibles and Ratatouille and The Iron Giant and things like that, Tomorrowland. So he's pretty familiar with it. This was the first big franchise movie, if you will. So this, now mind you too, this is the fourth different director we've had. So let's play this out for a minute. Okay. You've had um, Brian De Palma, okay, who did the original. Okay. You then had John Woo, who directed the second one. You then had J.J. Abrams, who made his directorial debut. And then you finally had Brad Bird. So after all these films moving forward is all going to be Christopher McQuarrie. I think Tom Cruise is a little underrated for his stunt work and action scenes. People, oh yeah, he's completely underrated. And that's why I said the other day that when he's gone, people are going to really be wishing they had him back. Absolutely. And he does an incredible stunt in this movie, and I'm going to get to it in a couple minutes. But so they visit, okay? So this goes to 3 or 4 different cities, okay? And this is why it did have a $195 million budget, okay? They went to Budapest to begin. Okay, then they were in they were in Dubai, then they were in Mumbai, and then they were in Moscow. I mean, they were in Moscow to begin with too. So, I mean, a couple of different cities. So right off the top, what I looked at was so let me give you a little how I looked at it. I did it as I was going scene by scene, um, and it's important to do that because I like. I mean, I have a whole I have a whole 2 pages of notes. Okay, you can't see it that well, but everything I liked about this film, I wrote down as it was going on. I had seen the film a few times, so right off the top with Budapest, okay, the establishing shots were really cool and how they were zooming in. So we see overshots of the city. That was, and this is where drones were starting to come in and everything else. Really cool shots about that. Um, I love how we're introduced to Ethan in them. Okay, so we then go to this prison. Okay, and so to start, of course, we see that the mission. Okay, how Louis gets shot. We then go to the prison in Moscow, and or right around there. Okay, we're introduced to him, and he's just bouncing it off the walls. Okay, meanwhile they're trying to break Ethan out. Once it starts to ensue, this is the genius of this movie. Okay, what Brad did. Once it starts to ensue, you have this prison ride. Okay, I mean you could almost think of it as anything we want. What does Benji do? By the way, so I'll say that in a minute. But what does Benji do? In order to counteract, he puts Dean Martin on. So you have this Dean Martin music going on in his. I mean, they're fighting in the things. So let's get to the cast real quick. I mean, everybody pretty much knows the cast, but this one's a little bit different. Okay, so we have a lot of new faces and players coming in. Okay, I'm going to start from left to right. So I'm not sure who that is. I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure who that is on the far left. If somebody could tell me, that'd be great. But nonetheless, he was involved with the project. To his right was the director Brad Bird. Okay. To his right, of course, was Paula Patton, played plays Jane in this film. Who I gotta say, every single one of these new characters has an awesome character arc. Awesome. Of course, in the middle we have Tom Cruise. To his right we have, and I'm going to butcher her name. Forgive me. That's um, Leah Sudan. So she was in Blue is the Warmest Color, but she also is in. She played the Bond interest in No Time to Die and a couple of the other films. Okay. To his right is the actor who played Winstrom. Okay, and that is. Bear with me here. Um, Samuel Edelman. Okay, that is Samuel Edelman. Okay, and he's most known for a little film called Private Eyes Farrar back 20 years ago. And then finally, you have Simon Pegg, who's been a staple for this franchise for, you know, pretty much 20 years, almost 20 years. So this is the second film he's in, but he was introduced in Mission Impossible 3, but still did a really, really good job in this. And as I said, every single one of these characters, okay, whether it was Brand or whether it was Jane or whether it was not pictured here as Jeremy Renner, and so he actually had a fantastic role. So also, one of the other things that this film does is the rotation of secretaries. Okay, so we've had 3 or 4 different secretaries of the IMF for all of the movies now. So in the original, it was John Voight. Okay, in the second one, we had Anthony Hopkins, and they don't make big appearances. In the second one, we had Anthony Hopkins. In the third one, of course, we had the incomparable Lawrence Fishburne. And in this one, Tom Wilkinson makes a cameo as the secretary. So, you know, we have all this. So that's another little nugget moving forward. So that all being said, um, So, anyways, Ethan gets broken out of prison. I love that just juxtaposition, like I said, between uh, the D Mart music and the fighting. So after in the sewers, okay, the whole opening credits were taught where Ethan says light the fuse, and then we go right in the Mission Impossible credits. That was about 9 minutes in, and that was cool too. We're starting to get we're in the story now. We're really enveloped in it. Okay. Um, the flashback. So after Ethan gets um, broken out, okay, and he's introduced to Paul to Jane, okay. Which, by the way, if you notice this in the third film, okay, they kind of they kind of use the same thing. So in the third film, it was um, it was Ethan who had trained Kerry Russell's character, and she died, okay, and then as the backstory is being told, as Jane's telling the story, we're hearing her voice. She actually trained Holloway, and he died. So there's a little similarity to that too. Um, but I did like how they did the backstory there as as the flashbacks are going. Um, every single time we always hear, how are they going to get the mission, right? So in the first one, um, it was basically that was given. Okay, it was in the second one. Okay, he uses Oakley glasses. In the third one, it was a camera. Okay, one of those disposable cameras. In this one, it's with the telephone. Unbelievable. Okay, so I love the creativity they're using in doing that. The toys. Oh, and the comedic beats in this really worked. I got to say that right off the top because Simon Pegg is a fantastic. Somebody said it today somewhere. I heard comedy's all about timing, and you have to be able to time it right in order to have it work. Right. That all being said, Simon Pegg, who is the comedic relief of this film, did a superb job of that. Um, but even before that, you had you know, Ethan gets the mission, and he's walking away, and he looks back, and it's like, did this not break? So he hits the phone, and it self destructs. I mean, just little things like that go a long way to the humor of the film. Um, the toys. At the end of the day, Mission Impossible is a spy movie, right? It's like a James Bond. It's like a Born Supremacy type of thing. I loved the toys, and you could really, really tell how they were used, right? I mean, whether it was the biometrics for the retinal stuff, whether it was the the false wall that they used, Benji and Ethan used in the Kremlin, whether it was the table, okay, which I'll get to in a couple minutes, about how they got the mission, whatever it was, the gadgets were really cool and innovative. And I think that's a big part of this too. Because when we watch spy things, it's like having Batman having his utility belt. What is he going to pull out this time? What are they going to do this time? How are they going to get through this? How are they going to get through that lock or whatever it is? They really like the balloon that had the camera on it that was dropped in. I mean, just things after things after things. Um, yeah. So that all being said, so the Kremlin, they get the mission to go in the Kremlin. Okay, they get set up. The Kremlin explodes. He meets with the secretary. They've been disavowed. Okay. So once again, Jeremy Renner, who's not pictured here, he is now the chief analyst, Brant, as it's called, and he has to escape with Ethan. So they go to this train yard, and in the train yard, okay, we go to where he and basically he and his team, okay, have the cash. And that being said, basically this is a scene where he says, if anybody wants out, say it now. And so, of course, they're all still going to be in, and you know, um, They want to stop this. Okay. And so, how Ethan gets his mission, and one of the things I loved about this movie is, like I said, the creativity of it. Okay. This is how he gets his mission. Okay. He puts the little USB thing right down, says loading, and it gives him his mission. And it's amazing how they're able to, use little things. This little table scene kind of took me back to Quantum of Solace. That scene where M comes in and she's looking at the bills and everything else. That's what it reminded me of. I love this. So once again, as we can see in this cache, the tech is all there, right? You have something as easy as that where you can just put it down, okay? Biometric stuff, they have the things to make the mask. It's all of this stuff is there. So once that's done, okay, like I said, so once that's done, basically, and this scene really tells you the severity of the actual situation. And he says, listen, if anybody wants, the secretary is dead, we are disavowed. There is no backup. There is no, cash. There is no safe house. There is nothing. We are the four that are left from the IMF. If you want to get out now. And they, of course, not all, they're all sticking around, but they load up, and this is when they're going to go to Moscow. And so, or this is when they're going to go to their next place to try and stop Hendricks from actually getting what he needs. And once again, this movie is not all about situations, but it's action driven. It's very action driven. And the editing of this is incredible. The sequence in Dubai, okay, when he's running through the, and of course, you have to have a couple of tropes, right? I'm not going to lie. You got to have a couple of tropes. There were a couple of running sequences, one, of course, being in Dubai, But before that, okay, the stunts. I know I always talk about it, but this is one of the biggest. This is when the stunts really start to mount up. So they are trying to, go into this meeting, okay, with Moreau and Wistrom and get the codes and make sure they don't fall into the wrong hands of the enemy, live nuclear launch codes. So, of course, they can't go through, all these different things because, Benji can't do it. There's multiple things there. So what does he have to do? He's got to climb on the building. This tells you how crazy, by the way, this sequence was beautifully shot. Anybody who's seen this movie knows what I'm talking about. This is one of the most creatively shot, beautifully shot things you'd ever see in your life. Now, they actually had to alter the building, okay? So I wrote a couple of little things about the building down, okay? So first and foremost, okay, this is the tallest building in the world. Standing structure building, okay? What streams are these films on? Paramount Plus. So you can find them on Paramount Plus, okay, because that is a Paramount film, okay? Or you could probably find them on your local on-demand cable thing for free, maybe. I mean, they've been out for quite a long time. If nothing else, I would check like something like Tubi or some sort of free thing. I mean, I actually got Paramount Plus to actually go only for the month to really do this. But I would check either like Tubi or if you have Paramount Plus, you could do that. Or even if you don't want to pay for it, Dad, check your local on demand, like FX or whatever. I mean, there may be commercials in there, and I don't know if you want to deal with that. So definitely, those are where you could find that. But the stunts. So this is, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. It's in Mumbai, okay? It is the largest structured ground to air in the world. By the way, the overhead shot of it was just incredible. I mean, how they shot that. So as I said, it's the tallest building in the world. Okay, that's the first and foremost. It has the highest number of stories any building in the world. Okay, um, 2,722 floors in the building. Think about that. Two thousands. So actually, to be fair, it was about 117, 118 floors up. So you can imagine, right? So length from top to bottom, it's 828 meters. Now that doesn't mean a lot here, but think about it like this: 2,716 and a half feet. Now, put this in perspective for a minute. If you 1 mile is 5,280 feet. Think about that for a minute. That's nearly half a mile up. Half a mile up. Okay, I got Paramount. Oh, no problem, no problem. So you should be able to enjoy all those films. Um, but yeah, half a mile up in the air. I mean, we make roller coasters at 1/2 a mile up. Now, you got to remember too, he's using these things, okay, that are on his hands, and that, of course, Benji being Benji, think of it like this: it's a rolling motion. He says, what's blue? Just think. He says, think of it like this: blue is glue. And he's like, what's red? Dead. I mean, simple things like that, right? The cute comedic humor in this was just magical. So, like I said, I mean, I can't even imagine how they filmed this. I mean, drones and everything. The way they did this sequence was just unbelievable. So the swing sequence, okay, when Ethan is actually trying to get back in the room, kind of reminds you of the swing sequence in Mission Impossible 3, right? With that thing. So it's the same sequence nearly. But so the building sequence is just unbelievable. So once that happens, and by the way, the CGI, I mean, it wasn't heavy with CGI. I mean, there was some, but it was unbelievable. I mean, like the explosion of the Kremlin, really good CGI for what it was worth. They didn't use a lot, but they used enough. And Brad Bird and his team did a phenomenal job with this movie. Yeah, so I couldn't even. So as the rock climbing sequence, that was the thing. It kind of reminded you of when there was that shot like this, and then there's that side shot, and then they go wide, right, to show you the scope of it. It was kind of like that rock climbing sequence at the beginning of Mission Impossible 2. So they're starting to use little things over and over, if you notice, if you watch them long enough. Yeah, I mean, just the whole sequence in the hotel. I mean, so you had the fight. So, by the way, the cross-cutting, amazing. Absolutely amazing. We see Jane, and as I said before, every single one of these characters had an arc. Okay? So you had Jane, who wanted to kill Moreau for the loss of Holloway. You had Brandt, okay, who we still didn't know the backstory of Brandt, and we get to him later on, and that was really good. And then Benji. And Benji had always wanted to really become a field agent, but he was more of a tech guy. And even in the beginning, when he's driving in the van, he's like, Ethan says, and how are you here? He's like, oh, yeah, I passed the field agent's test. Crazy, huh? So, I mean, we see how he's evolving as a character, which is fantastic. Once again, the running sequences, I mean, there's always a couple of staples in these movies, okay? One of them is the running sequence. So the second running sequence we get is in Dubai with the sandstorm. And I found it interesting, okay, sticking with all of the tech and everything else, that in the cache, okay, they were talking about wearing masks, right? So right over here, Brandt was really unsure of how it was going to work. And so what ended up happening was he's like, how is this going to happen? And so Benji's like, oh, yeah, we'll just wear masks. Jane will double as Moreau, and, somebody will double as him, and that's it. So as the whole sequence, so once Wistrom gets the codes, okay, um, and that whole thing happens, Moreau realizes, okay, that's not who it needs to be. They kill, okay, they kill the scientists, and he's chasing after him. What happens? The team that wasn't supposed to use the mask wasn't wearing the masks. It was that Winstrom was actually Hendrix. So that was a good little twist. Hendrix was the one getting the codes, okay? Because they all thought that Hendrix was going to go to the, or Wistrom was going to go to the meet, but it was actually Hendrix to get it. So that was a cool little twist in that facet. Yeah, I mean, just as so, you see the tension building and building and building, and once that happens, so once we get past Dubai, um, you know, you think, oh no, all was lost. So then, you have that sequence, okay, of them all coming together, and really that sequence at that point, okay, and this is really the start of the third act, and it almost could be considered that. So he goes to that meet. I mean, it kind of brings everything together. That person that he broke out at the beginning of the um, movie comes back, okay, and Sergey, and he thinks he's Sergey, and he talks to the weapons dealer, and he's like, I certainly can't tell you that that it was a tactical satellite sent, up. So he's giving Ethan the information, and he gets all the information he needs, and then, that's that shot, with the Jeep, private plane. He steps out. He's like, "Look, guys, we got to do it together." So this is when they go to Mumbai, and Mumbai, of course, is when they have to, because don't forget, Jane feels responsible for this mission blowing up because she killed Moreau, because she was so obsessed with revenge that she killed Moreau, and that was it. So in the interim, okay, on the plane, they figure out what the plan is going to be, and then they have a talk. Ethan basically tries to comfort her. She gets a second chance to redeem herself. Um, at which point, you know, all of these characters have, something to do. So Brant, we find out later that he was on the detail, that there was a husband and wife, and they died. And supposedly that was Ethan's wife. And he feels horrible about it. And so that was a major sticking point. And at that point, there had been rumors about how he got put in the prison, because it was an unsanctioned hit, or she left him, or whatever. And so, yeah. So as we go into that, everything's starting to come together. So Benji finally makes the kill that he needed to, okay, because he's always been, he's a tech guy. I mean, so this is like big thing for him. So he's making his first kill as a field agent, okay. Brant gets redeemed, okay, and Jane gets redeemed. So once they get the code, okay, once again, so we get to that plot point of, it's called point of no return. This is where you think everything's lost. Our heroes are not going to be able to do that. So once, they're chasing through, that's the city, and trying to get, trying to stop this nuclear bomb from going off. And yeah, so at that point, so Hendrix and Cruz have this epic battle. this epic battle in this car garage, and they're all they're both after this briefcase. I mean, so this is what and I know I keep saying it, but this is what's called a MacGuffin. Okay, it's something that both characters are after, and both of them want it just equally as bad. Ethan obviously to stop it, and Hendrix to actually have it launch. And so some of the craziest stunts you see, not as crazy as hanging off the side of a building or swinging off the side of a building, but definitely crazy nonetheless. The editing here was unbelievable because it's all bang, 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 bang. It's rapid fire stuff. And it has to be filmed just, as quickly and cut as quickly. Um, Fantastic stuff. And of course, Hendrix doing what he wanted to do, takes the briefcase and kills himself, to try and avoid Ethan to actually doing it. And, of course, he drives the car off there. And so at that point, the airbag explodes. Another cross-cutting scene. And, I thought it was this just goes to show you the silliness of Tom Cruise. Is where he basically says mission accomplished, right? I mean, he's slamming his thing down, mission accomplished, and he's like, what? Well, why is this working? And so, but yeah, it was like 2 seconds left. Meanwhile, he's hurting, and then you have the actual Russian bad guys come in and say, so we're not enemies, and he's just shaking his head. I love Tom Cruise because he can effectively act. A good actor can effectively act without saying a word, and he just shakes his head. He's like hospital. He's like, but and so at the end, okay, basically one of the things that was talked about with Brandt, and he felt really guilty about it. So this scene here, so everything's taken care of. So we have this scene here. By the way, Vin Rames making another appearance. Okay. So if you look back, actually, if you go back to the original Mission Impossible, so they're recycling scenes. Okay. This is the same scene that we saw right out of Mission Impossible. Okay. And he's having a beer at the bar with Ethan. And so they walk up. I love what he says. He's like, this is the law firm of Carter, Benji, and Brandt. And so, they all sit down. He takes off. And they talk about what they did. And Benji, of course, with comic relief, Ethan asks her, how's his conscience? She says, good. How's yours? And says, oh, I'm fine. I mean, so it's like he's chiming in. So I love how he takes out the phones, okay, and just places them right on the table. Your mission, should you choose to accept it. And so, they all pick up and they leave. And then Brandt's just sitting there. And he's like, and leaves the phone. And you see the camera pan down to the phone. And then it's like, Brandt. And so then they talk. They say, look, I know I was supposed to watch your wife, and she's dead because of me. It's like, how do you know she's dead? They're like, well, I saw the body. It's like, well, do you really think that was her? And then he basically tells him that it not only wasn't her, but he didn't do anything wrong. And he was relieved. And so, they're good. And then you see that one of the most touching I mean, I love the shot anyways. One of the most touching shots. And mind you, they're cutting back and forth. And this is a really good way to reintroduce her. Okay? She wasn't shoehorned in, she wasn't forced in, but it was a really good way to introduce her or reintroduce her. Okay? And The music was great. And once he pays for the drinks, he just goes and he leans against a post. And then he just sees her. And he just watches her. And she just turned around and was kind of shocked, but, she's in a loving way, and she smiled. And she gives him a little wave. And that's basically, and I love you. I know I can't be with you, but I love you. And it was just so touching to see. And so, he says to Brand, it's not your job to protect her, it's mine. And so, once again, he knows that they can never be together, as long as he's an agent. But, and then, on top of all of that, okay, after they're good, after he, says hello to Julia, what happens? He pays for it. He starts walking away into the smoke, puts the headset on, the earbuds, hello, Ethan. Your admission, should you choose to accept it. So he's going to get right back out there. And he's like, you need to intercept. There's a group out there, called the Syndicate. And it's essentially setting up Rogue Nation. And it, wow. Like, how cool is that setup? It makes you want to go watch it again. It's like, yes, I want to see that. This movie, I mean, and it's like, I definitely need to revisit. You've motivated me to do so. Well, I'm glad I did. But going back and watching this again, like, this was a really, really good movie. Not just because of the action, because the action was stellar. Okay, the whole car sequence when he's trying to find him with the phone. Okay, I mean, you have that. You have the, of course, the sequence like I showed here when he's climbing the building. Not only you have that, but you have the character arcs with all three characters. You have the tech stuff. Okay, you have this stuff. It works all the way around. And the editing, the cross-cutting, it was real. Now, something else I didn't make mention of, and I want to real quick. So the score. The music is always an important part of any film because it sets the tone, right? Michael Giordano. And if the name sounds familiar, it should. Because he is the same one, okay, that did Up, okay? He did Ratatouille. He did the first Star Wars. And, of course, most recently, he did the Batman. And how he did not nominate for the Batman is beyond me. But, yeah, so the editor, Paul Hirsch, did a phenomenal job with this. Of course, he did Star Wars, A New Hope. He did Empire Strikes Back. He did Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I mean, he is a very established guy. And so I should say Bad Robot produced this, okay? Skydance, that's his baby. And of course, was produced by Tom Cruise. And this is when he was really starting to be more hands-on. So, like, for the weekend, okay? It's fascinating. So, the first weekend this came out, okay? So it came out the 21st, okay? It actually, so there was a preview weekend when it was only at 425 theaters. It made about $13 million, okay? The next weekend, it jumped up 131%, and it made $29.5 million. The next weekend was Thanksgiving weekend. It made $44 million, okay? And it was in almost 3,500 theaters. This movie had legs for its time, okay? 6 weeks in. It made almost $30 million the week of New Year's, okay? And then, $38 million, and then it started to tail off, okay? I mean, this was in theaters for 18 weeks, but it was a really, really solid film, and it doesn't get enough love. It really doesn't get enough love. I'll be honest with you. I had seen it a couple times, but I hadn't really sat down and watched it in a while. This is a really good movie. This is a top notch, one of the better um, Mission Impossible movies. I mean, is it as good as, let's say, Mission Impossible, the original, or Fallout, or probably not, because nothing is ever as good as the first one, and Fallout just gets super extreme. But for stunts, for action, for character development, for comedy, comedic themes, this hit all of the notes you wanted. And Brad Bird did a really good job, considering this was a major blockbuster for him. You got to remember too, that's where, I mean, when you don't do a major blockbuster, and this is your first one, and you're doing a Mission Impossible, and you're working with Tom Cruise, it can definitely be overbearing. So, I mean, like I said, to think that it only made 12 and a half, $12.7 million opening weekend, that's astounding. I mean, that's one of the lowest. Think about this, guys. That is one of the lowest opening weekends of this franchise, hands down. And it ended up making $209 million total. Now, granted, 2/3 of it came from overseas, but still. Now, put this in perspective, okay? Um, the next film, okay, and I'm going to. So the next film, okay, that for next week that I'm going to be talking about is, of course, as was demonstrated, Rogue Nation. Now, this is when it really starts to ramp up, okay? I mean, this is one of those things where we have more characters coming in. We have, you know, another secretary. So this is when Christopher McQuarrie starts to really make his mark. Okay, this in I'll tell you this. Give you a little preview of this. So this had $150 million budget. Okay, it was about the same runtime. It had a $55.5 million weekend, and the budget was the same. It ended up making $682.7 million. That's incredible. Okay. Once again, Abrams produced it, but McQuarrie, this is when he really starts coming on strong here. This is for the last 15 years they've been working together, and I can't wait to sit down and watch Rogue Nation. And so the villain, okay, as far as I gotta say, so the couple things about it, okay. First and foremost, okay, so we have a brand new secretary, okay, Alec Baldwin comes in, okay. But a couple of things. Number one, I think that once you start working with the same director over and over, you get a better understanding. Number two, the fact that it's just, this is where I think box office, and I'm all about box office, I'm all about numbers, and I get that. But it's one of those things where this is what James Bond was trying to be, right? This is what James Bond was trying to be. Because what they did here at the end of Fallout, or the end of Ghost Protocol, is they set up Rogue Nation. And Rogue Nation was really like the part one, if you will, okay, of the second film, which was Fallout. And Fallout was just, it had the same villain, same actor. It was insane. And the stunts got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I can't wait to sit down and watch this one And because we have, as I said, we've got a couple of new characters. For example, Alec Baldwin is the secretary. Okay, Ilsa Faust, okay, played by Rebecca Ferguson, is the um, is an agent that has uh, infiltrated the organization. Okay, you've got Jeremy Renner, who is now a suit. He's no longer in the field. Okay, this is still Tom Cruise's franchise, hands down, but he's starting to get new players. Vin Rames is back in this one, okay, as Luther, okay, playing the tech guy. And Simon Pegg, okay, Benji, is more of a field agent now. He's now refined. Who's better, Ethan Hunt or James Bond? I want a little push if need be. Ah, that's tough. Well, yeah. See, it's interesting. Um, I'm okay. I'll preface it by saying this. I think that. So, anyways, guys, this is the film for next week. Okay. Um, but to your point, who do I think was the better Bond or Hunt? Okay. You have to understand something. Ethan Hunt was created specifically for this role because when it comes to Mission Impossible, Ethan was not in the original television series. That being said, as far as that's concerned, it's one of those things where the character is very good. Now, Bond, okay, because if you do a checklist, let's do a checklist real quick, okay? So toys, right, or gadgets, they both get the check mark, okay? Personality, okay? Ethan is more serious, okay? Bond is more cavalier, if you will, with the number of women he sleeps with the quibs, whatever, okay? It depends on who you like, okay? So we'll put that one in the middle, okay? Missions. Now, usually the mission, okay, is either to save the world or stop somebody. So, that being said, okay, usually the mission for James Bond is one person. While there's an overarching thing, it's usually one person. While it's the same thing there, okay, um, that's a push too, okay? Teams, okay? Bond works by himself. Ethan works with the team. Now, once again, it depends on what you like. Okay, if you're a loner, go with the Bond. If you know, you could easily. So, I mean, that's a push. Okay. Um, Franchises. Okay, Bond's been around for 50 years. This has only been around for 25 years. Checkmark goes to Bond. Okay. Um, Stunts. Okay. I don't think there's any question that goes over here in Mission Impossible. So it really depends on. Yes. Yes. Bonus points for the Bond girls, though. Yes. Checkpoint. Bonus point. Yes. For the Bond girls, definitely. Definitely. So I think at the end of the day, it really is. And one thing I'll say is this: the check mark goes over here to Ethan Hunt, okay, for Mission Impossible because it's one actor. Because you've had several different actors over the span of 50 years, okay, play the role. Whether it's Hornsby, whether it's Sean Connery, whether it's Roger Moore, whether it's Timothy Dalton, whether it's Pierce Brosnan, or whether it's Daniel Craig. Okay. You've had 6 guys play the role. It's all iconic roles. Okay. All iconic movies. But Ethan Hunt, one franchise, 25 plus years. That goes to Mission Impossible. So now, The $64,000 question is this, and I know I keep going back to it all the time. Money. Okay. How is it in the money things? Because when at the end of the day, it's about you and I and everybody else that watched this video, okay, that really say, oh, well, this one's made um, this amount of money or that amount of money or whatever. So, as far as franchises are concerned, okay, James Bond has had 27 movies, okay, that has made a total, a worldwide box office, okay, of $7.87 billion. Now, that's 27 movies. If you go down to Mission Impossible here, it's had 8 movies. Now, it's counting, I will say this, they're counting the 2 new films, but we're not going to do that. So as it stands right now to date, it's only made $3.5 million. So that check mark goes to Bond. Because the thing is that Skyfall was the only film ever to make $1 billion or more. And it should have. It should have. So it's really a matter of, it's like saying this. Who's your favorite basketball player? Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant? Right? It depends on who you enjoy. So I just like to introduce conversation. No, yeah. I think it's one of those things where I think it's generational too. That's part of it too. I think it's generational. If you have, it depends on what era you grew up in, right? For example, I was born in 75. I started watching Bond when I was 15. So I remember Timothy Dalton and Roger. I mean, I remember A View to a Kill. I remember, The Living Daylights. I remember, GoldenEye, all these things. So that's part of it. This, everybody remembers. I mean, this is only, you got to remember, this first film came out 3 years after Jurassic Park and Schindler's List and all those great films. Okay. So this is more in the zeitgeist of today's culture, if that makes sense, where Bond is every 3 or 4 years. Like right now, it's who's going to be the next James Bond, which I have no idea about. But this is every once or 2 or 3 years. This is like every couple years, but it continues to go on and on and on and on. So if I had to pick a franchise today, it would be Mission Impossible. Over the long haul, though, I think it would be James Bond, because not only does it have more movies in the franchise, but you have better actors. You have better actors. I mean, whether it's Sean Connery or Timothy Dalton or, Daniel Craig, whoever you want. So I think, yeah, they're both equally as good. I mean, hell, you could even throw Bourne Supremacy, the whole Bourne thing in there. But so, guys, that is Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. As I said, next week, and it's going to be an earlier stream, I promise. It's going to be Rogue Nation. This is the first one that is actually the second one. So this is the first one that's going to be directed by Christopher McQuarrie. McQuarrie's been doing these films now for 15 years with Tom Cruise, and we've seen the results. And they're only getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I can't wait for this, and I can't wait to sit down and watch it. Anyways, because the way that Brad Bird introduced her back was perfect. Vin Rames playing Luther makes an appearance. I mean, so it's a matter of fact, okay, a little fun fact. Tom Cruise and Vin Rames are the only 2 people ever to appear in all the films. So that tells you something. And if they're anything, and one thing you do know about them is they were all about synergy. They were all about coming full circle. whether it's the guy playing Kittredge, bringing him back 25 years later, or whether it's the guy that, was supposed to go to that Alaskan tower in Mission Impossible, whatever it is, they're all about synergy. They're all about circuits, full circle, and all that good stuff. So we'll see about that. So, coming up, programming note, next week, and trust me, it'll be much earlier than this week. Stay tuned for Rogue Nation. I can't wait to sit down and watch that. It's going to be so good. And then Sunday, we'll take a break. Monday, we'll get right back at it. And then coming up on Thursday is the preview for when it's released for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So I'll be going to see that on Thursday. And then the spoiler cast will be on a Saturday. So stay tuned for that. And that's how we're going to do it. And then, Thursday, this upcoming Thursday, will be Secret Invasion Thursday. And then Friday, we'll be right back here next Friday for that. And then, so we're going to keep going with this, guys. And that's what's going to happen with that. So if you guys want to, say, as Dad is a supporter, you guys want to support me, you can do a couple different things. I'll make it very brief. If you want to pick something up at the store, mugs, shirts, jackets, hoodies, fantastic items. And then, or if you just pop in here and you like the content, you drop me a super chat. I'm always thankful for that. Or if nothing else, guys, I ask, please, please, please leave a like, okay? And hit the subscribe button, because that helps the algorithm out. That helps people know that you want to see my content, and others can get to that as well. And yeah, so, and that's, I'm trying to grow this and, all that good stuff. Okay, guys, so that's going to do it for this evening. Do the 3 things you got to do. Be safe, be careful, and have a great weekend. Okay? Go see a movie. All right. Come back here tomorrow for Ask Me Anything, and I will see you guys later. I'm David Steele, and you have been watching Real Talks. Bye-bye, guys.